This is Limited Supply, the place for refreshingly real takes on what D2C is really like.
We're your hosts, Nik and Moiz. Let's start talking about money.
All right. Second episode, third episode.
We're going to find out.
We're going to find out if there's a second or third. How many group chats are you in? Like on iMessage?
On iMessage?
Yeah. Are you in a bunch of group chats? Because I find group chats are my daily entertainment.
Oh, really? No,
yeah, I don't watch TV.
Mostly ones with my family and like a couple of friends, but not many.
Interesting.
Invite me to the group chats.
Yeah, I feel like I live in group chats.
Okay,
like
fantastic.
my 9 squares in iMessage, they're all group chats.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Those are all family members.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. All right, so what are we talking about today?
Okay, so this is episode 2 or episode 3. We're still trying to figure out what we're doing here and how to make the content here really good. So we're going to try and figure out if we have 3 or 2 episodes. We got an agenda that we're going to talk about today. It's just Nik and me. We're going to talk about Grow, which just happened yesterday. We're going to talk about a brand that you bought recently, and we're going to get into all of the details about it, how you make product, how much you paid for it, how you structured the deal, who's running it. I'm super excited to learn that. We're going to talk about Prime Day, which just happened, and how businesses did, and how to optimize for Prime Day. We're going to talk about valuations and fundraising. Thrasio stock is down 82% in the private market, which is insane. We're going to talk about SaaS pricing on the heels of Klaviyo raising prices.
Maybe a little bit of Yapo banter.
Darian, if we got time to do all this, some of this may spill into the next episode.
Let's do it.
But okay, let's start with Grow NYC. I didn't go. I was actually out of town visiting my family. You went. You hosted a party afterwards. Tell me everything about it.
Yeah, so I went. It was. Have you been to their venue out in Queens, the Knockdown Center?
I went last year or the year before. Yeah, before
So
COVID.
it's. I think it's a phenomenal event. They put it on every year. There's an LA one and a New York one. And so this was the New York one. It was July 29th, and actually today as well, the 20th. The thing that everybody took away from that was it was hot as fuck. So it takes them 2 days to cool down the building. Somebody accidentally yesterday morning flipped the switch to like allow hot air in or push hot air in the building, and so everybody was sweating through their shirts. And they were pissed because everybody was talking about it. A lot of people left really early. Not many people stayed till the end. And today, I didn't go, but a few other people were texting me that the attendance was down about 80% from yesterday.
Okay,
so I think it made a huge impact on people.
Yeah.
So then I hosted not the after party, but it became the after party. So it was funny because I was hosting this event with Rebuy. And so I love hosting these dinners and these events in New York. And for me, it's a great time because like I get to invite all the people that want to get 15 minutes on a call or 30 minutes of coffee. And I just don't have enough time to give. And nor do I sit around waiting for people to ask me to get on the phone,
Yeah.
Which I think people just assume. They're like, oh, Nik is probably just sitting and he's got nothing to do. So I'm going to email him for 30 minutes and get on his calendar. But so we had, we normally have like 150 to 200 people who sign up, and it's like a rolling incoming list. So there's usually concurrently like 90 to 130 people inside. Yesterday, for some reason, like we paid extra for security. Security just never showed up. And then at Grow, everybody was like, oh, we're going to the Sharma Nights thing. I was like, what are you doing tonight? They're like, oh, we're going to the Sharma Nights thing.
Wow,
and
that's
I was
awesome.
like, oh, cool. It's awesome, but the venue doesn't handle more than like 200 people. And the RSVP list, I didn't want to tell the guy that runs the venue. The RSVP list was 276 at like 4 p.m. and the event started at 6. And the Rebuy team was telling everybody like, yo, we're hosting the official after party. And so it was funny too, because Tatari hosted a dinner, like a very fancy dinner. Recharge and Klaviyo hosted a really nice happy hour. And we both know Jack from Duradry.
Yeah.
He was like, I went to the dinner, there was 4 people. Then I went to the happy hour, there's 10 people. And then I showed up here and everybody's here. So I was like, that's a victory in my book.
How was the actual, you hosted a panel as well.
I did the second panel, I think. First or second panel. And,
what was it about?
So my panel was about attribution and customer acquisition post iOS 14. It's like the thing that everybody wants to talk about.
Who was on it?
So I had the vice president of brand marketing at Athletic Greens, the CEO of Bloomscape, and the founder of Barcode. So Bloomscape is like the SIL.
Got it.
Athletic Greens, and Barcode is like a healthier Gatorade. And the funny part was like, I wrote these questions I watched a panel at that Hamptons event. So I watched the panel that Chris Cuomo did, and the way he articulated questions was so phenomenally done. Like he researched everybody. And so I was like, I want that type of reaction from the crowd, because the crowd was going nuts when he was doing his panel. And I was like, I want people to come tell me that I asked the best questions.
That's
and I
awesome.
did the best research. Yeah. And I did all the research, and I had great questions. And like a third of the way through, I was like, dude, these guys don't know shit about attribution. Like none of them are in the weeds, none of them, and they all had the questions for 2 weeks or so, but none of them had a single thing about attribution. When I asked, like, my question was something like, you obviously you're all spending 7 to 8 figures a year. Some of you 7 to 8 figures a month in advertising. You can't be flying blind. How do you think about attribution software fitting into your tech stack? And the Athletic Greens VP was like, I don't know.
Yikes.
And I was like, damn, well, that shoots the panel down. But
well, she's VP of brand marketing.
VP of brand marketing. So, but I sent all the questions a couple weeks ago, and I expected somebody to just say like, hey, let's skip over this, or, I don't know that well, so let's hit it from a different angle. But yeah, so then I kind of ditched my questions and just like, almost like a live podcast, just riffed off what they were saying.
Did anyone have any interesting insight into attribution post iOS 14.5?
No.
Okay.
But I think overall, so Grow does a phenomenal job, like bringing the right brands, right? Yeah. You think of like if you were to look at like Coachella and you see like, Travis Scott or Post Malone at the top of the poster, like in D2C, that's like the bigger brands that everybody thinks of. So that's the upside. And then for Grow, it does a really good job, because if you get the good brands there, then you get the best sponsors, right? And you get sponsors with like deep pockets. I think Greg was telling me they turned down about 1,000 sponsors, and the ones that were there were like Gorgeous and Rebuy and, kind of like all the ones that everybody uses, probably the ones with the bigger pockets too.
Sure.
But so big marquee brand speaker names brings great sponsors with big pockets. The problem is like the speakers are all run through like their PR filter of their brand. And so you don't get genuine conversation. You get like, the prep calls, there's prep calls for panels, right? So everybody knows the questions that are coming in. And then my guess is that like they run the questions by their PR team, or like, they're like, well, we don't want to disclose this, or we don't want to talk about that. So I think the good side is like the right people are there. So if you get a conversation with somebody who you admire their brand or what they do, I think it's worth it, like off stage. But on stage, I just don't think you get like the nitty gritty or the real juicy stuff.
So basically your takeaway was panels are, even you were super prepared, and you're like, this panel isn't working out because nobody's prepared. Nobody else either is answering honestly or knows what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah.
And the conference just wants these big brands so they can get big sponsors.
Yeah.
All right. So you learned how to run a conference more than anything on iOS 14.5. Well, that's scary.
Yeah. But overall, I think like one thing I do appreciate is they almost tell the sponsors like, look, you are not allowed to go pester the attendees.
Yeah.
Which I think is a very common thing at other conferences. Like I was at Geek Out in Miami, and I felt like I couldn't walk around anywhere without 3 people trying to pitch me a credit card or some app or something, So that didn't happen, nice. Which I really enjoyed. Like I felt like I could stand anywhere, even in the sponsorship area, and not get pestered, which I really liked. But yeah, I think, I don't even know what the solution would be to get those juicy details. Maybe it's like people who are no longer a part of the business, or people who just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell you when I left P&G, I had Wall Street Journal reporter call me up being like, hey, do you have any gossip you want to spill about the business?
Yeah.
And like, do you know anyone else who has gossip that they want to spill about the business? And I was like, I loved my time there, so I don't have anything.
Yeah.
But I do think that that's a way that people do it. But I also think that like, a lot of these conferences are that way. You just get people who are, PR directors talking about nothing, and you get no information. And that's why we do this actually.
Yeah.
So that we can get into it.
I also think generally like for a growth focused conference, you just shouldn't have people from brand marketing there.
Yeah, I can understand that. I guess the thing is, then you got to get smaller brands that are more performance oriented.
Yeah.
Like Athletic Greens is huge, and I don't know what their marketing looked like 6 months. 6 months ago, I saw them everywhere.
Yeah.
Today, I see them almost nowhere.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they realize that brand marketing isn't working, or they're like, you know what, performance is working. We can dial that back down brand, or they're like, look, we're big when it comes to New Year's resolution, so we can slow it down the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So, but I get what you're saying. You need like founders who are more scrappy, like, you know, the vice president of, you know, a big brand like Athletic Greens that does brand marketing.
Right. Probably too far removed.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like Grow was great, but a little bit of a disaster, hot weather, people who didn't know what they were talking about. But you learned a ton on how to run a conference.
Yeah. I would go again though.
Yeah.
I would definitely go again.
Yeah. I would have gone if I were in town. I think it's a great conference.
And also like, it's kind of like the, I don't know, the Thanksgiving dinner of like people like us. You know, I saw so many people I don't normally see or like hang out with, or like people flew in.
Yeah.
So that's always fun too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears and move to the brand that you purchased.
Yeah.
Which I'm really excited to talk about because
I feel like I haven't told you much.
Yeah, you haven't told me much. And I love these types of details because I'm like, why am I not doing more of this? And it's just super interesting to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so first let's start with the name of the brand.
Yeah. All right, so it's called Long Wknd.
Yeah. And it's Long WKND.
Yeah, longwknd.com.
Okay, and what does it sell?
So we sell personal care, plastic-free personal care products.
Love it, right up my alley.
If you remember a few months ago, I was in LA and I texted you and I was like, I said, you know, do you have industrial space in Brooklyn or Jersey? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. And I was like, what are you talking about?
You were like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, well, you know, I just bought this brand and I need to ship a container somewhere and then hire some employees to like come and make the product. And you were like, you're out of your mind, text Mary. And Mary's a contact you introduced me to like a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And, you know, she was the woman behind the Hint sunscreen, Native deodorant, tons of other cosmetics brands. And so she had also coincidentally texted me that morning just saying like, hey, can we catch up? And this is when anybody texts me to catch up. I'm like, just tell me the punchline of like what I can do to help.
Yeah.
You know, because like there's nothing worse than like getting on a 15-minute call and genuinely, I don't care how your day is going.
Sure.
Just tell me what I can do to help. Yeah. Tell me what I can do to help because I'm so down to help you out. Right. So anyway, so Mary texted, but Mary's awesome. So I was gonna call her when I got in the car. So you said text Mary and it was perfect. So basically, actually, I'll take this back a little bit. So when the pandemic started, me and this guy Gareth Everard. Gareth, I don't know if you've ever met Gareth or talked to Gareth. Dude's super sharp.
Yeah.
He's like an ops ninja. And, you know, when the pandemic started, him and I were thinking, all right, there's going to be a few brands. There's a lot more than a few, but there's going to be brands that are basically, they've raised too much money. They're improperly managed and we should go buy it. And, you know, Nik's side will do sales and marketing and Gareth's side will do like ops and product. And,
so when did you buy this brand?
So this happened in March.
Okay, March of 2022.
Yeah.
And who did you buy it from?
Pila.
And so what's Pila?
All right. So well, let me give you a bit of the backstory.
Yeah,
So Gareth and I were looking for basically 2 years. There was like 3 deals we came across. One was a tableware company. It was like your classic, you know, classic D2C brand, like plain, you know, pastel colors, like founders on every single podcast imaginable, every single magazine shoot, photo shoot, social media profile, whatever, and just like burning money. And we thought, okay, we could buy this great product. We can just, you know, trim the fat and do it. And somebody else actually did it, but we didn't do it because there was $400,000 loan from Chase that needed to be paid back by whoever bought it. So we said, no, thank you. The second one was a footwear company called Sutro Footwear. And we were basically like literally inches from the finish line. And Open Store came in with a deal that said, you know, you'll get 75% of $250,000 today. And then you'll get the remaining 25% in 60 days from closing. And so then, you know, they basically said, all right, we're going to just take that deal because we want liquidity. And then actually, as they got in that process, they were like trying to back out because they were like, we made a mistake going to Open Store, but they couldn't get out.
Okay, gotcha. And Open Store is the business that goes out and buys Shopify businesses.
Yeah.
It's run by one of the guys from Atomic and Keith Rabeau,
Jack
I think.
And Keith Rabeau.
Yeah.
Rabeau. Yeah. So then there was, I want to say there was a third one. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, so then Gareth had like, some personal things that came up and we kind of put this project on hold. And then 6 months later, he comes back and he's like, all right, I'm back to work and I'm now the CMO of Pila. Pila is like a holding company in Canada. It's like the sustainable P&G.
Yeah.
So like they sell, phone cases, they sell sunglasses. Yeah. They just came out with a brand called Lomi last year, which is like a tabletop compost machine. And Lomi is going to do hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue this year as like year 2 in business.
That blows my mind.
And yeah, it does. But they spent 2 years innovating this product. It's truly an innovative product. And they crush it from a marketing standpoint. Like they made their own Harmon Brothers type of ad and it just crushes. And so anyway, so Lomi's going to do that. And meanwhile, Long Wknd was also under their umbrella. And they were like, this is going to do 1.6 or 1.5. It's just not worth our time if this thing is going to do, over 100 million in revenue.
Sure.
So Gareth texts me and he's like, do you want to buy this brand? And I'd actually looked at this company about 2 years ago when it was called Habitat Botanicals. It was prior to the Long Wknd rebrand. And I thought like, it's a cool brand and I was actually pretty interested. I just didn't have like the team to support that whole process. And that kind of intimidated me at the time. So now when Gareth texts me, I was like, I'm very interested. And so I started doing a bunch of diligence and basically I was like, all right, I want to buy this. And so, Pila is making tons of money. So for them, their whole thing was like, we just want to offload this nicely.
Yeah. We want to stop thinking about it.
Yeah, we want to stop thinking about it. I know Gareth super well. I know Matt, their CEO, super well. And so, I'm like, look, guys, I'm not like a multimillionaire sitting here with boatloads of cash. And I don't think I can just go grab a loan right now for $1.5 million.
Is that what they wanted for it? $1.5 million?
Yeah, that was the deal.
How much revenue was it doing at the time?
So it did 1.6 last year. So it's basically 1 times last year's revenue.
Yeah. And did that 1.5 million they were asking for include inventory or was that separate?
Including everything they had. So so they were producing like in a spot the size of our podcast area, which is like probably like 10 feet by like 20 feet maybe. They were manufacturing picking and packing and shipping and fulfilling like ridiculous. All out of one thing. And so basically they put everything into a container, like down to like the microwave and the stools and like,
ship to you
to
from
ship
that
to me.
Room. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's when
before we get there, 1.5 million they're asking, how much of that is inventory? Like how much inventory do they have on their balance sheet where you're like, because if they have $1 million of inventory, you're sort of paying 500,000. And if they've got 100,000 of inventory, you're sort of paying 1.4 million.
Yeah, it was probably a couple 100,000 in inventory.
Okay.
So we agreed on that price of basically 1 times revenue.
Yeah.
It came with everything. They wanted it off their plate like as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And so, there was that lawyer you connected me with, Sean.
Yeah.
Ecom Law Group, right?
Yeah.
And Sean was the man. He was like, I can do these in my sleep. I'll get you docs tomorrow. And when I just texted him, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to buy this company. I was like, I'm going to buy this company. I need your help. Can you make sure I don't get fucked in any way? And he was like, I could do this in my sleep.
So how did you structure it then? If you're like, look, I don't want to get a loan. I'm not going to shell out $1.5 million cash up front. How do you structure that?
So I hope they don't kill me for saying all this, but basically I picked it up for nothing, and then it's a payback over time. So it's 25% of revenue goes to them, or 25% of profits.
25% of profits goes to them until you hit 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Or if that never happens, like if I'm unprofitable, then when this thing sells, they get the first 1.5.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right?
So you got to do $6 million in profits for them to get 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Which is hard on a business that's doing 1.5 million a year in revenue.
Yeah.
So they're going to be waiting for a while until unless you sell the business.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think their thought is like, it's off our plate and it's doing something.
Yeah.
But like, we don't need this 1.5 right now anyways.
That happens all the time. I'll talk to, if you talk to if you find out that you want to buy a piece of land and Bill Gates owns it, you have no chance because he's like, look, you're not going to be able to get in front of the guy to make a decision where he's like, yeah, I want to sell this piece of land for, $1 million. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
And I've tried to buy brands or looked at trademarks and I'm like, okay, Unilever owns us. They're not even using it, but there's no chance I'll ever be able to buy it from them.
Right.
Because they're like, look, we just hold this stuff. If you want to talk to the guy who would make the decision to sell this trademark, you have to try and work your way up in the system for 5 years. It'll never happen.
100%.
So that makes sense that they just want it off their book.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get the stuff, you get a container. You're shipping now from Dallas, is that right?
Yeah. So basically, this is the day I texted you for industrial warehouse. And you were like, are you out of your mind? Like, go talk to Mary. And so Mary Berry is like the best person in cosmetics, maybe. One of the best. And so I shipped our container to Mary. Mary just set up shop in Austin.
Yeah.
Shipped it to Mary and said, I was like, hey, Mary, this is the first time I'm doing this. So, tell me where I'm doing things wrong. But I've got a container on its way to you from Canada.
Yeah.
And here's the packing list of everything in it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going to arrive broken, what's not going to be broken. Like when it arrives, can you let me know what's going on?
Okay.
And she was like, absolutely, I got you. And so it was the most homie shit in the world.
That's
I can't even explain how good it was. I felt like royalty talking to Mary.
She's great.
And so this container gets shipped from Canada. Meanwhile, everybody, the site is active. So everybody, there's subscription orders that keep going out. Pila presumed that it would take 2 weeks to get to Texas. It took 2 months in customs.
Wow. Okay.
So it was just stuck in customs.
So all the subscription orders are renewing, but you're not shipping them out?
No, so then we had to work with Recharge to push the subscription orders.
Gotcha.
But customer service was getting blown up.
Yeah.
So our poor customer service agent is just getting hit punches in all directions of where the fuck is my order?
Yeah.
I'm getting charged for this and you're not shipping. Chargebacks are getting reported. And I was just like, dude, this is a horrible start. And so anyway, one other thing I'll say too. My goal was, Moiz started native with $500. I'm gonna try to build this with the least amount of cash as possible. However, on the day that we signed the closing docs, tequila brand that I advise got acquired by Diageo. And so I got $30K of equity or $30K from advisory shares. And I was like, this is the seed funding for Long Wknd.
You got $30K of $30,000 from advisory shares, and that was the
and I was
funding.
like, this is now this is all we have to make this thing successful. Let's see if we can do it.
Yeah.
And so, all right. So product arrives in Austin, and some of the ingredients are kind of not good to use, but most are fine to use, and all the inventory is good.
What month is it that you're getting it? It didn't melt in a 40.
It didn't melt.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. This was probably a month and a half ago. 2 months ago. And so product arrives, it looks good. And then that's when you and I went to Rumble, and I was like, hey, what's the best shipping company to go from the production facility to a warehouse? And you were like, I don't know, use YRC.
Yeah.
They're the best because you don't have to talk to them and deal with anybody.
They are the best.
And so I told my team, all right, guys, YRC, hit them up, get the shipment scheduled. And then it went to Dallas to Ship Hero. And they gave us a great deal as well. And everybody that we're working with, I'm taking your playbook and I'm saying, look, we have no money. Help us out. Yeah. I promise we'll come back and help you out again in the future.
That's great.
And,
that's awesome.
So we got our product to Dallas. It started shipping, and now it's our fulfillment time is 90 minutes. So 90 minutes is the average fulfillment time. Somebody places an order to the box is
okay. So you paid nothing. You got $200,000 of inventory. You're going to sell that out.
Yeah.
You're going to make some profit on that. So you've got to pay the Pila based on that.
Yep.
And how are sales today versus when you bought it?
So we just relaunched the site. I don't know if you've seen the new site.
Yeah.
You're
I'm
on
looking
it?
at it.
Yeah. So we just relaunched. We did a whole like rebrand and kind of upgraded everything.
Yeah.
New site. We're still working on site speed, which is why I haven't like tweeted about this yet.
Yeah.
We're working on site speed, and once that gets down, then we're gonna start like driving traffic and pushing it. And I really want to grow this thing with like collabs. So I want to do, a sniff scented body wash. I want to do an Emma Chamberlain coffee scrub.
Yeah.
I want to do, a Santal 33 scented type thing with
That's
at New York City on Instagram. Yeah. So I want to do things that are like more creative versus just pay to play. Ads. Yeah.
That's crazy that you can pick up a brand for literally $0 because someone's just trying to get it off their books. I think that you're absolutely right. You can do that.
And I think there's a lot of these out there.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are multiple brands that are doing, $5 to $15 million right now, or $3 to $15 million that are on the verge of bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And they're sort of going to all of their suppliers and debt holders being like, look, we owe you a bunch of money. We can't pay you.
Yeah.
And I think they're looking for escapes of basically someone coming in and saying, okay, I'm going to buy this brand and do something I'll take this brand and hey, I got a loan from, Wayflyer or somebody. And I can't pay it back, but when we sell this brand or 3 years from now, we're going to try and pay it back. And that's the best that one of these underwriters can hope for.
100%.
If Chase Bank loaned $250,000 to a brand, they're probably never going to get it back. So they'll accept the idea that, hey, look, you pay it back in 2 years. And that's, that's the best hope we have for getting some of that $250,000 back.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Pretty crazy that that's happening. I wish there was a more efficient process for doing this. Micro acquire isn't really this process. I wish there was distressed acquire. Yeah. Nobody just wants to talk about the fact that they're distressed.
Yeah.
And so all of these conversations happen via email or WhatsApp
right.
groups.
And it's like after multiple calls.
Yeah.
Or multiple. Yeah. Like nobody's really upfront with the price. There was that shampoo company you and I talked to separately.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Something Mammals.
Yeah.
And it was we both
Modern
didn't find out
Mammals.
we didn't find out about the price till way later.
Yeah, that was crazy. There have been multiple instances. I remember trying to buy a personal care brand during COVID. This woman that was running it was kind of struggling. And I was like, I know what to do with this brand. Sell it to me. And she would, she's like, she wouldn't give me a price. I was like, look, I don't want you to email me with a price. Don't use any of the letters on your keyboard. Just use numbers.
Yeah.
If you're using a letter, there's a problem. Email me right after this with numbers. And she emailed me a price, and the brand was doing, $600,000 a year, and she's like $3 million. I was like, your option is bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Not $3 million. It's
5 times
or
gross.
Bankruptcy. Yeah.
Right.
You're out of your mind.
Yeah.
And that's just the way the world works, because some people are like, look, I don't want to sell this thing until it's worth a lot more, or I don't mind bankruptcy.
Right.
And so that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So anyways, hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, site speed's fully optimized.
Fantastic.
And things are doing better. But yeah, the cool thing today was Harley gave it some love. He's like, this is a phenomenal site.
That's awesome.
So that was awesome. That was a huge, nice win for the team.
Yeah, that is really great.
Yeah.
And so what's an easy way for people, and I'm asking this from my perspective, how can I find out when somebody's trying to sell one of these brands? Like, I keep trying to get this deal flow. I hear everybody else getting the deal flow, and I'm like, why is no one coming to me?
I thought the same thing.
I can write a check.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I know how to grow a brand.
Yeah.
And there'll be people who buy it, and I'm like, look, I know how to grow a brand, and hopefully, I wouldn't say this about you, but compared to other people, there's a good chance you're going to get your money back if I'm giving you 25% of profit as opposed to somebody else who may not know how to run that brand. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how to get that deal flow.
Yeah, I don't know, man. When Gareth and I were looking, we set up acquisitions at sharmabrands.com, and I would just tweet a lot of times. I was like, if you're trying to sell a brand, send it to me. Like, I want to see I want to see it first. Yeah. And then, but I don't know. I feel, honestly, I feel like whoever is the people that loan the money to the brands, like the right person at Wayflyer or Chase. Yeah.
I tried that with a couple of the banks during COVID, and it didn't work. I didn't try that with Wayflyer though.
Yeah.
I did hear that the Hubble Contacts guys have a business that competes with Open Store, and they buy Shopify businesses, and they say I'm not sure if this is the case or not, but I've heard that they get first bite at anything from Clearco if it's not working out. Like Clearco sends them the deal and they're like, hey, do you want to try and buy
That
this
sounds
business?
like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Or it sounds
I set up something called MoizAliBuys.com. And you basically, if you Googled, I want to sell my Amazon store. I'd buy Amazon.
Oh my God, this site exists. I'll pay more than Thrasio and Open Store. Yeah. Let's connect.
Yeah.
This is epic.
Only like nobody who is qualified, people would be like, hey, I have a business idea. I want to sell it to you. And I'm like, you have zero revenue. You don't have anything. What are you going to say? You have an idea for beauty care? That's not anything. And so it didn't work out.
That's hilarious. I never knew this site existed.
Yeah.
You've never said this to me.
I spent a few $1,000s on Google ads and didn't get any results. Okay, that's awesome. That's a really good. I really love that story because it goes to the shows you that people can buy brands with literally zero cash.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone who's trying to get into e-commerce is like, how do I get my first $50,000?
Right.
Or like, how do I raise money? Do I need $50,000? With Native, we ran that business. I think we started with $1,200. You started this business with literally $0.
Yeah.
So really amazing stuff. And I hope it inspires people and makes them realize, hey, we can start businesses with very little amount of money.
Yeah.
And think about it in a capital efficient way.
Yeah. And the other thing we're doing is like every single vendor that we work with, Loop Returns, Shopify, Klaviyo, etc. We're just like, we have no money right now in this bank account. What can you do to help us? And some are like, fuck off, we're not doing anything discount.
Yeah.
And some are like, we'll give you a few months for free, or like, we'll turn your 14-day trial into 6 months.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. You're basically shaking a tin can in front of all these SaaS businesses, being like, hey, can we get some money? Can we get something over here?
And I think if I calculated it, I think we're probably saving well over 5 figures right now in software costs.
That's awesome.
Which is huge.
Okay, we're going to get to SaaS pricing in a minute. But before that, let's talk about Prime Day, which I think generally was much bigger than people expected. Like I'm an investor in several brands. One of the brands that I know really well grew their Prime Day sales by like 300% compared to last year.
Wow.
I'm not sure if it was bigger this year or they were doing a better job. Generally, I heard it was much bigger. Amazon released some stats that were really insane. They said they sold 100,000 items per minute, not 100,000 orders, but 100,000 items per minute, which is 1,600 items per second during Prime Day. All 24 hours, all 48 hours of Prime Day, which is nuts.
Did it say how much more that is this year versus last year?
It didn't. Okay. They said, what was really interesting? They said their AOV was up it was $52 per order as opposed to $45. They also talked about some of the best-selling items. Some of these weren't surprising, like, Amazon products, like Amazon Kindles, because they were so cheap. Apple Watch, because it was super discounted.
Yeah. AirPods too.
Yeah. They said diapers from Pampers and Honest, which I thought was interesting. Vital Proteins Collagen, which I hadn't seen on there before. Some pet products. Crest White Strips. Crest White Strips, I think, has been the best-selling product on Amazon, or was the best-selling product.
Isn't that like P&G's biggest product too?
No, it's not their...
it's diapers, right?
Yeah, Pampers is P&G's biggest one. Crest White Strips, I think, was the number one selling item in 2020 and 2021.
Wow.
I'm not sure if it was in 2022, but I'm sure it's high up there. The other crazy thing that they mentioned was the best time, their best hour of sales was 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Prime Day, which is much later than I suspected. I thought people would either wake up, do it during work or something like that. Not 8 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah. I wonder if that's like, maybe that's when they sent their push notifications for Prime Day, or, they went really hard on email at that time. I wonder why it was 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And also, is that 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern or locally?
I bet it's Pacific because they do all their, like, if you look at Amazon sales, if you have a Seller Central account, even if you're in New York, they're like, here's your sales based on Pacific time zone.
Got it.
I don't even know if they send out email. Like, I remember, reading this book called The Everything Store, which is about Jeff Bezos. And people were like, early in the days of Amazon, sellers were like, let's send out emails being like, hey, you bought this, buy it again, or sending out emails. And Bezos was like, we will make this a huge business without ever sending out one fucking marketing email ever. And so he's like, I don't believe in marketing emails.
I feel like I haven't seen any.
Yeah, exactly. I rarely get, rarely, if ever, now that I can think about it, Amazon marketing emails.
Yeah,
so
it's usually just like a review request.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not even sure they send out emails being like, hey, it's Prime Day and go shop. They probably do, but 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. was really surprising. But I guess the more interesting part to me was like at Native, I've run 2 e-commerce businesses. We never sent out emails at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. We were always
never.
like,
it's always like 7 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the way I thought about it was always like the Gilts and the Rue La La's of the world. This is back in 2012 and 2013. We're sending, I think Gilt was at like 9 a.m. and Rue La La was at 10 a.m. And so those
always
were
on the
always
dot.
The hours that I was shooting for.
Yeah.
And one of the things I heard or I read about a long time ago, a decade ago, was like, if you want to improve deliverability, you want to send out the email every day at the same time. Or like, whenever you send it out, you want to send it out at the same time. And now I think that's complete bullshit. Yeah. I remember doing this once at Native and we were like, oh, you know what? Night works a little bit better than the morning. And I was like, no, let's send them out in the morning. Like I overruled that, which was probably a big mistake. 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. I wonder if people should be sending out marketing emails, post 6 p.m. as opposed to 7 a.m. when everyone's doing it.
Yeah, I always, and the reason I send my newsletter at 7:15 p.m. on a Sunday, I just think like, what would I be doing in PST and EST?
Yeah.
It's like 7:15 on a Sunday, I'm just sitting probably somewhere watching like YouTube.
Yeah.
And 4:15 on a Sunday, I'm probably also just sitting.
Yeah.
Like I probably just finished doing something and I'm getting ready to go chill for the night.
Yeah.
And even when I was at Hint and we would, send marketing emails, I would always think like, all right, what are we doing PST and EST? Is somebody on their drive home and somebody just finished dinner? Like it would like 5 p.m. Or 5:30 p.m. EST or PST was always a good time to send because it was like somebody's usually just about to get home from work and then somebody also just finished dinner. So like both are kind of like gray or like open times.
Yeah.
But yeah, 8 to 9 is really interesting. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Also, I could see that as like sitting on the couch. I wonder how much of this came from their website versus the mobile app. Yeah. Because that could also be interesting to see. Like, mobile app, I could see 8 to 9 working really well.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm usually not on my laptop at that time.
Yeah. That's a great point. And you're right about like Sunday nights. We never sent out emails on Sundays at Native, and then we started to, and it turned out that
it's
it had
one of the best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because people, like everyone on Sunday night is relaxing and getting ready for the
And no
work
one
week.
else sends emails because they're like, why would we send an email on a Sunday?
Yeah. And I think that like, a lot of people are doing a little bit of work on Sunday to get ready for their week, like opening up their laptop and either thinking about like working out or like, meetings or like, preparing for the week. And so I think it is great time and not too late where you're like, look, I'm watching TV and zoning out because tomorrow I'm gonna have to go to work and my job sucks.
Yeah.
But really it's like Sunday 4 or 5 p.m. Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
HBO would like, own Sunday night television. Like they're like, whenever we're like, Curb Your Enthusiasm dropped Sunday night, Game of Thrones, Sunday night, Succession, Sunday night.
Right.
They were like, look, Sunday is when we want to own the consumer because that's when they're going to sit at home and watch TV.
Yeah.
And that probably means that you have a lot more opportunity to send them emails or do some sort of marketing towards them.
Totally. So one thing that, that brands did, I mean, I think a lot of the good brands have been doing this, but I think more people are catching on to it, is running sales of their own on their own.com. Or I forget the other like big
You're saying on Prime Day? They're saying
on Prime Day.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
But I forget the other, there was another big company that ran a sale on Prime Day and basically said like, it was like a week-long sale. It wasn't just the 2 days, it was like all week. And they were just trying to capture the excitement of like people being ready to spend. I forget the name of the platform. I was trying to remember what it was, but did you guys run sales on Prime Day? Like on
some of the brands that most of the brands that I work with will run Prime Day sales on their .com. And a lot of them will use it as like Facebook advertising material as well. So they'll be like, they'll say Amazon Prime Day discounts available today in November or like, in August or September. Like they're constantly doing that. Like, it's Black Friday every day. Yeah. And so that's pretty hilarious. You mentioned that, and there was one thing I thought of recently, which was I knew this brand. I saw some company on Shark Tank. And this brand that was like a competitor to the company on Shark Tank started advertising were on as seen on Shark Tank, even though they were not on the show. They're like,
but like same
saying
product?
as seen on Shark Tank. So if you would Google it, people would be like, oh, this is what I saw. And they would click and buy and purchase. And to be honest, like what happened at Native once was there was another deodorant business back in like 2016 that was on Shark Tank. And we saw a huge lift in sales, even though we weren't on Shark Tank, because there was just another natural deodorant business that was on the show.
You probably own natural deodorant on
Google.
Google.
And then people were Googling it and buying our product. So I thought that was really clever, just basically saying as seen on Shark Tank if you see a competitor's product on Shark Tank.
That is so really fascinating. Imagine if there was like a company where, you know how you have like Gartner is like the old school, or like Spins, like all these companies that do like these big analytics.
Yeah.
What if there was one for, this newer wave of like direct to consumer brands, and it was like, all right, they're going to plug into everybody, and all the data that comes to them is fully anonymized, but like they could come out with a report or even just put out the fact of like, there was another natural deodorant on Shark Tank pitching and Native saw a bump. But like, that's a really interesting insight. Cause like if I, for example, even with Long Wknd, like I'll probably now keep an eye on like, what are the upcoming Shark Tank brands? Cause they're always available to see,
definitely,
a week or two before.
Definitely. There is a company called Second Measure. I think it's called Second Measure that does this.
Yeah.
It's really expensive, and they sell their data to a lot of VC funds. And what they do is they basically buy credit card data. Like they'll buy 3% of all the credit card data they can from like Visa and MasterCard. Yeah. And then they're like, you know what? Native did this much in sales. Long Wknd did this much in sales. And they have a good estimate based on direct to consumer sales. But it's not really accessible to, you and me in the same way that like Nielsen data isn't accessible to us.
Right. I see like Harry's and Fabletics, their logos are here. But other than that, it's like VC firms and Goldman Sachs.
It's super hard to get access to them. But like
it's owned by Bloomberg.
Yeah. Oh, that it makes a lot of sense. It's fantastic information. And like, basically what you do is you look at the revenue that's on there, you multiply it by 33, and you have a decent sense of like, is this brand growing or not growing too?
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
There was another company that Rakuten bought that did like a bunch of order tracking for like after you place an order, you have an app that it shows you, it was kind of like Route.
Yeah.
And then that company that was already owned by Rakuten bought Unroll.me.
Okay.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And you could basically, it was like consumers use it to clear their inbox of junk.
Yeah.
But I used to use it because I'd go to Rakuten and say, build me a email audience that I can run on Facebook of everybody who has Amazon receipts in their email that have bought bottled water.
Wow.
And those types of audiences used to be some of the best audiences you could get.
That's really interesting. First, Unroll.me like ended up selling your data to like Uber and Lyft and all these guys, so everyone hated them.
Well, that's how I found out about it. I saw it was Uber that bought it.
Yeah.
And I think it was like it was one or the other. I can't remember, but one of them was buying them to go to them and say, we're going to put a better offer in front of you. And I read that in the New York Times and I was like, this is genius.
Yeah,
like,
it is genius.
People thought it was privacy invasion. Yeah. Meanwhile, they have Alexas sitting next to their bedside table.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is genius. I need to buy this data of everybody who's purchasing bottled water because it's right there.
It is genius. You mentioned that there was a time where Oracle would also...
data logics.
Yeah, exactly. They would sort of say, hey, we'll give you a Facebook audience of people we think will buy your product.
Yeah.
And so they would just drop the Facebook audience as a custom audience.
Yeah.
And they're like, we've worked out a deal with Facebook and your CPM is a little bit higher because we get a little bit of the cut for this audience if you advertise here. And it was, I thought that was a great idea, which was Oracle sort of saying, look, we have better information than you do. We've created an audience of people that we think are going to buy your deodorant. Let's create this, let's plug it into your Facebook ad account and you can advertise to this audience. And if you advertise, you don't have to pay us separately. It's built into the price.
Yeah.
It didn't work. Like the audience didn't go anywhere. Like we tried it and I was like, this audience is worse than our lookalike audiences. It's, it wasn't a good audience, but I thought that was an interesting idea.
Yeah. I remember trying that. And I think the advantage with Data Logics was I could be like, I want American Express cards who shop at Whole Foods and spend more than $50.
Yeah.
Or people who buy on certain sites. But yeah, those weren't that effective. But then when Cambridge Analytica, that whole scandal happened, all of this got shut down.
Yeah.
And there was some workarounds that were trying to happen, but I don't think it ever like came back.
Facebook had this amazing thing called audience insights. Do you remember this?
Yeah, dude, you could upload anything.
Yeah, you could upload an audience, and as long as it was 1,000 people, Facebook would be like, this is the age groups of the audience. Yeah. This is their interests. These are the other brands that they like that are like your brand. It would give you so much information. And look, as soon as that Cambridge Analytica thing came out, they crushed it.
Yeah, that whole product went away.
Yeah.
Even like down to the numbers of an audience that's like targetable or estimated audience size. Like that went away.
Yeah, exactly. Which was a real shame because I always use this benchmark as like, if the audience is a million people, for every million people the audience is, I can spend $1,000 a day on Facebook ads. So if an audience is 8 million people, I can spend up to $8,000 a day on this audience running Facebook ads to them without exhausting them very quickly. And now Facebook is just like red, yellow, green, broad, medium, no good. And you're just like, this doesn't mean anything any longer. Sense. So it is much, much tougher.
Have you played around with Shopify audiences yet?
No, I've heard people say that those haven't been fantastic, but have you done it?
I haven't. I've heard that that the audience sizes are almost too small. Like 2 million is the biggest Shopify audience you get.
Okay, that's too small.
And it is kind of small. It's like a 1%.
Yeah. By the way, what do you think of? Have you seen this buy with Prime? I don't see anyone using it yet because I think they just rolled out with it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where like you have a button on your Shopify page instead of add to cart that just says buy with Prime. You click it, you're taken over to Amazon, and you can check out immediately. Like you sign into your Amazon.
I haven't seen this. I've seen it like in the checkout in the Shopify checkout.
Yeah, this Amazon is different. That's Amazon Pay, which is basically like use my payment information from Amazon. This is okay. We have a button on the product page, the PDP of your Amazon. Like on Long Wknd, I go to the deodorant page. You click buy with Prime. I click it. I'm taken out to an Amazon page. I sign into my Amazon information and my address and order information is automatically, and my credit card information is populated. I buy it and Amazon ships it to me. You don't ship it. Amazon ships it because it's already FBA.
Yeah, you have to be you have to be FBA. Seller Central.
Yeah.
Vendor Central.
No, Amazon, you don't have to be Vendor Central. Like, you just have to be FBA. Yeah. Okay. Amazon just has to have it. And the crazy part is, Amazon is basically saying you were going to sell this item through your Shopify website, and then you were going to have to deal with customer service. Your warehouse was going to have to pick and pack it. You're going to have to pay your shipping fees. You guys suck at this. It's going to take 7 days because you're shipping from, Florida, and this has got to get to Washington, this got to get to Washington State. You suck at logistics. Yeah. Every Shopify brand. Instead, click this button on the PDP and it goes directly to an Amazon page and Amazon ships the package out. You get an email confirmation from Amazon saying the order is confirmed. You get an email confirmation from Amazon saying the order is shipped. And the brand still gets the consumer email address and consumer shipping information. So you still retain customer ownership and you still have a direct link with the customer, but Amazon does the fulfillment. It's really a genius idea.
And do you know how much it costs?
It doesn't cost anything. It basically is just like Amazon's like, we're going to charge you a smaller fee or maybe even the same fee of like, an Amazon sale, but we handle all the logistics and our shipping is going to be way cheaper than your shipping. And the customer is going to get it in 2 days.
Wow.
So basically you drive traffic to your Amazon page and to your Shopify page, and Amazon takes that credit or Amazon fulfills that order, which is really genius of Amazon saying, look, even if you want a Shopify website, let us do the fulfillment because we're better at this.
That's so interesting. And it looks like, I'm just Googling here.
Yeah, it's called Buy with Prime.
Yeah, it looks like, I don't see much pricing detail here, but I'm also looking in 10
I don't think any store has it just yet.
Okay,
I don't think any store has launched it. Yeah, it's been announced, but I think in the next month you'll start seeing stores with it.
I should ask about that. Maybe we can discuss it. Yeah. I'll try to get some details on that.
Sounds great.
All right. Okay. So it's let's do a time check. Should we go to the next one?
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. We'll do it quickly. And this is valuations. Let's talk about SaaS. Okay, so for our next episode, we're going to do SaaS pricing. Andrew Udarian had this tweet that I really want to go through as well, but let's talk about valuations here. We're running out of time.
Perfect.
Okay, so basically, valuations are down materially. And that's clear with publicly traded stocks, right? Like Shopify is down a lot. Facebook is down 50%.
How many millions have you lost?
Millions. Millions. But, I'm a really long-term investor where I'm like, look, I expect to own Facebook. I expect to own $5 to $10 million of Facebook stock for the next 50 years of my life, unless there's a dramatic change in the business. So I'm a very long-term investor in those brands. And I'm really bullish. maybe people aren't using Facebook Blue as much as they would, but they're still using Instagram. They're still using WhatsApp. You know, Facebook still has a lot of opportunity here.
Producer Ben over here uses WhatsApp, unfortunately.
Yeah. But you know, private market valuations are starting to reflect this. You know, there was this Wall Street Journal article saying Stripe's valuation just dropped for the first time ever. And Stripe was basically trading at $180 billion on the private markets. It had raised at $90 billion. It was trading at $180 billion or somewhere around there. And now they just dropped the valuation internally to $70 billion.
Wow.
For the first time, like, you know, and Stripe is maybe the best privately held company today. Incredible business. But, you know, Thrasio is down 82% in terms of their private stock valuation. Bolt has fundraised multiple times in the last 12 months.
Like within 12 months.
Yeah, within 12 months and multiple times in the last 12 months, and their stock is down 12%. I'm sorry, 80%. Cameo down, Roofstock down, Turo down. What's going on in private markets with e-commerce? Is e-commerce not, you know, publicly traded? Is e-commerce bad for publicly traded businesses?
I just think that some of these businesses just, if you zoom out, right? Fast, for example, even Bolt, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's PayPal, there's Stripe, and they both do one-click checkout. And then there's ShopPay, which their mode is that they're on every Shopify store already.
Yeah.
How are you going to come in and say you have something new?
Yeah.
You know, like what can you really bring in that's new? So those were two companies that I was just always puzzled as to like, well, if ShopPay, first of all, Stripe does one-click checkout, and so does PayPal. Yeah. But let's say there's room for a third. The second Shopify says, ShopPay is allowed anywhere. Yeah. These guys are done. Yeah. Like who would not want to use ShopPay over Fast, right? Yeah. And so that always confused me. I do think that Thrasio, it was built in an Excel sheet. Like I think a lot of these businesses actually were built in an Excel sheet. And I don't think like, I don't know if their CEO or whatever, like has ever built e-commerce businesses before, but like just the thought of navigating logistics across hundreds of companies, it just sounds like it's not going to work. Yeah. You know?
That's interesting. Okay, so let me talk about a few of the things you mentioned. One is the Stripe stuff. ShopPay is super powerful. Stripe doesn't have it, and they need to have it because they power everything. Mm-hmm. Like they're the backbone of Instacart.
They're even the backbone of ShopPay, right?
Yeah, and ShopPay. Yeah. And so like, you know, I wish Stripe would. And I remember having a conversation about this, and they're like, once a year we have moonshot meetings about what things that we should do. This is a moonshot, and I was like, this isn't a moonshot. This is like the thing that you should be building right now because I want one-click checkout, and ShopPay is great on Shopify websites, but it's not going to get me anywhere on Instacart because Instacart's not on Shopify. And it's not going to get me anywhere on Way Travel because Way is also not on Shopify website. So make it so that like, you know, Stripe, which is powering everyone, has that one-click checkout. I really think they should do that. You mentioned Fast. I looked at investing in that business. And what was crazy is I was looking at the seed round and they're like, look, we already have locked up Stripe as a Series A investor. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's not possible. You're raising your seed round and you already have locked up a business as a Series A investor. I've never heard of this. And sure enough, they were right. Like, you know, Stripe came in with the Series A, blew my mind. I passed on the deal because, you know, when I was chatting with their team, I was like, tell me how this business is going to work. And they're like, look, we are so oversubscribed. We're just going to let you in because you're e-commerce, but otherwise we would never let you in. And I was like, how's this business work? And they're like, we're just going to let you in because I'm like, you're not talking to me at all about the business. And they would not talk about the business. Yeah. If you asked if you're like, what does fast.co do? They're like, we're just going to let you in because you really know e-commerce.
Do you remember the valuation of the seed?
I can look it up and try and get back to it. Was, you know, it's probably $20 million or somewhere around there. And I was just like, you refuse to talk about the business. And I remember I did the conversation, like, you know, I was on the call with my brother and their team. And like afterwards we're like, we cannot invest in this. We have no idea what's going on. We don't understand this business. And it seems like it seems like there's charlatans running the business. And so that's the reason we passed. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I think Thrasio, good question about Thrasio. Is it run by somebody who runs e-commerce businesses or as a financial spreadsheet? I mean, one thing that's crazy is they're like, we're not looking for synergies. We don't care about synergies. There's no synergies in this. Every business operates independently. I remember chatting with them and they're like, look, this is a valuation play. We buy a business at 4x EBITDA. We go public at 20x EBITDA.
Right.
So we get five
it's
times
an
the
Excel
value
sheet
of the
business.
It's an Excel sheet business. I guess I'm a little surprised that it didn't work as well, or it's not working as well. And I don't know why the stock is down. Are there Amazon businesses doing really poorly? I remember they chatted about a business called Agent Orange that they had bought on Amazon. They're like, we bought it in like 2019 and it was doing $3 or $4 million a year. And now it's doing $40 million a year on Amazon.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's a huge, and they're like, we're hoping that 1 in 10 businesses turn out to be exceptional businesses.
It's like a VC firm.
Yeah. But I think they were also like, we don't even need that. If it just stays a $4 million business and kicks off $1 million in EBITDA and we bought it for $4 million and we go public and it's worth $20 million to have Agent Orange in our portfolio. This is a good idea. I'm not sure what's happened though.
Do you think there are a lot of businesses within Thrasio that are doing fine like that, but just the markets don't recognize it or validate it?
Good. I don't know enough. I have no information. It's privately held, so there's no information about what's coming out. Like an 82% reduction in their market cap, though, is not just a reduction because of the market has changed.
Right.
It's a reduction because their business is suffering. It's not just like, okay, you were worth $1 billion before. Now, the stock market is lower, so you're worth $180 million. That's not possible. Yeah. There was a fundamental change of that business where things must have gotten worse from a top line and bottom line perspective. What it is, I'm not sure. I've heard that they're trying to unload some businesses. And if that's the case, please go to moizalibuys.com and, talk about it, or just DM me people at Thrasio. I'd love to get involved in your Amazon businesses.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what it is. There must be some business thing that's hurting. I'm not sure what that is though.
Yeah. Do you still think it's worth to angel invest in companies that come out and they're like, we want a $10 million valuation. We're about to hire a branding agency?
If anyone's like, we're about to hire a branding agency, I'm just like, this is terrible. Please go do learn Photoshop, learn to, all you need, I remember, watching somebody create like the Target logo on YouTube. And he's like, let me show you how they did it. They wrote Target in Helvetica font. And then they created the, bullseye logo, but Target's font is Helvetica. And I was like, fuck. Yeah. This is Target.
Yeah.
They opened up Microsoft Word, typed out Target in capital letters, and they're like, this is enough.
Yeah.
And so
but do you still actively angel invest in brands?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Only when brands have shown an understanding of real, a lot of brands will email me and they're like, this is a killer signal for me where I'm just like, I can't invest with this guy. They're like, we're going to be $1 billion business in 3 years. Today we're at 0. And in 3 years, we're going to be $1 billion. I'm like, you have no idea how hard this is. Are you crazy?
How fast did Stripe get to $1 billion? Do you know?
I'm not sure how fast Stripe got to $1 billion, but I would think about it differently from a SaaS business than I would a brand business.
No, for sure. But my thought is if Stripe took 4 years, there's no chance you're getting there in 3.
That's right. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. So I think that's a real sign where I'm like, you have unrealistic expectations of how big this business has to become.
Yeah.
Or how easy it is to grow this business. But will I invest? I think the last one I invested in was the Good Crisp Company, which is like a Pringles competitor. And the reason I invested in it because the founder was really intelligent, understood all of his numbers. I got a call with him and I was like, hey, explain to me this P&L. And he's like, look, I understand P&Ls. I can build P&Ls and I can talk about ours intelligently. And I know what revenue, I know why our revenues high this month as compared to last month because we did a big end cap at Whole Foods and we got a ton of sales and that did really well. And I know why, our COGS are higher this month because we're putting a bunch of stuff on a boat and shipping it in and our COGS are going to be higher this month. And he thought about it really intelligently and his valuation was reasonable. And so was his thought process in terms of, hey, this is how I want to exit the business. Some people are like, I never want to sell this business, in which case I'm like, when are we ever going to get a return?
There's no money coming back.
Yeah. And some people are just like, I think this is going to be I'm not going to sell until it's $1 billion. And I'm just like, you're selling this skincare product. That's really, really hard to do.
Yeah.
There is 1,000 skincare products being launched every day. And one maybe every 2 years becomes $1 billion business. So, what are the chances that you are that 1 in 100 million?
Right.
Probably not very high. So you need to have more realistic expectations.
Yeah.
And so those things. And also one of the things that Andrew Yardarian, who runs this company called E-Commerce Fuel, tweeted about today is he's like, look, one of the things that we see when we see a successful e-commerce business, based on all the research I have, is really lean teams.
Yeah.
When teams have 50 people or 30 people doing 20 million in revenue, I'm like, what's going on here? Why do you need so many people to do 20 million in revenue?
Yeah.
Are you handing out coupons at the New York City subways? Like, you need to cut this team down. And so I guess to answer your question, do I invest in brands? Yes. When they're run by smart people, men or women, when the founders understand their business, have realistic expectations and understand the levers that pull it, and just don't talk to me about brand or product. They're like, one guy emailed me, I'm launching a product, athletes are interested, everyone's interested, it's so unique, we have a big moat. I'm like, what is it? He's like, jackets. I'm like, jackets? You have a big moat around jackets? What do you think nobody else knows how to make a jacket? Yeah. I can buy one tomorrow. I can buy one right now on Amazon to deliver in an hour. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, you don't have any understanding of the business. Don't waste everyone's time.
Right.
Like, it's not don't waste everyone's time, but like, be realistic about who you are.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go out tomorrow and be like, I'm starting a deodorant business. We're going to do $30 billion next year.
Right.
The whole market is $4 billion. Like,
right.
Have real, be honest.
Right.
And I think they're not honest with themselves and they're not honest. So it's going to be hard to be honest with me.
Totally.
What do you think about M&A? Like, is M&A certainly slowing down? I saw this article in the Wall Street Journal that says Johnson & Johnson is, really looking to acquire brands. I bet that they're really not, especially in the personal care or in the direct-to-consumer space. Where are exit opportunities going to come from in the next 12 months? Or do they not?
I don't think it's I don't think we're going to see a ton. I don't think majority are going to be like your native exit. I think a lot of them are going to be brands between 20 to 80 or 20 to 50. Like I know Harry's, they look for brands between 15 and 75. And I think even a lot of the holding companies that exist, they look for brands between 5 and 20.
Yeah.
I think there really actually is an opportunity for somebody to be like, I'm just going to go spin up 3 brands a year and I'm going to get them to do $2 million a year in revenue or $1 million in EBITDA. And then I'm going to live the best life I can. And I'm just going to build and sell.
Yeah. Or build and be like, hey, I'm running a 4-hour work week operation here.
Yeah.
I have $2 million of net profit coming in every year.
Right.
And I live like a king. And I never think about it. I've got VAs or I've got outsourced customer service and I've got a couple people running ops. And this is a great business. And I never think about selling because I'd rather have $2 million a year than $6 million or $8 million up front. I think you're absolutely right about that.
I remember looking at a company, I think I sent it to you a couple of years ago, balls.co. It was it's a Manscaped competitor.
Yeah.
Much smaller than Manscaped. But they were trying to sell for 5. They were doing $1 million in EBITDA globally. And the global thing was my biggest issue with it. Yeah. Also, I couldn't come up with 5 million overnight. Otherwise I probably would have gotten it. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of those that are just why wouldn't somebody build a business where they're just making $1 million a year and it takes them an hour or 2 that business in their sales deck or in their M&A deck. It was it takes us 5 hours a week to run this business between 2 people. And it makes us $1 million a year in EBITDA. And I was like, why can't more people do this? They absolutely can.
They should. I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's one of my goals is to be like, hey, let me buy or start 5 brands that each do $1 million in EBITDA.
Yeah.
And it's you can be living an average or above average NBA player.
100%.
You're earning $5 million a year, except you don't need to work nearly as hard as they're working or have any natural talent.
Exactly.
And so I think that's really possible.
Yeah.
And certainly if you're like, hey, look, I want to make $500,000 to $1 million a year, that's super possible based on drop shipping if you need to do it, but also something like balls.co.
I also wonder too, there's so many companies that I see on the SaaS side too, that I'm just I don't even think I've seen a company like this be acquired. And there's a lot that I've definitely invested in where I'm I'll put a small check in because I want first access or I want to be first on the list when it becomes available.
Yeah.
Or I want access for our clients before anybody else gets it. But I'm just who's going to acquire this UGC TikTok app in the future? I don't know who is.
Yeah.
And I don't know that anybody will. I just don't know what's going to happen. Have you seen a lot of SaaS acquisitions happening?
At the smaller scale, there's a bunch of Shopify apps that I think trade like that, and do like there'll be a $2 million top line business with great SaaS margins of $1 million EBITDA, and they'll trade either via microacquire or a small banker or something to that effect.
Yeah,
or like the Quiet Life brokerage.
Have you bought anything on microacquire?
No, I haven't. I've looked.
Yeah, I bought a company on microacquire.
Did you?
On the way from Maryberry to Ship Hero, on that drive, I bought a company.
How much did you pay for it?
$8,000, and he should have priced it at 24. So hopefully he doesn't listen to this.
Okay.
But I thought it was genius. Here's why. So I bought it for $8,000. It spits out with its current revenue, it was spitting out $900 a month in profit.
Okay.
$900 a month in revenue. The costs of a server and like all the things behind it was like the server's like $10 a month.
Yeah.
And then everything else was like, I don't know, another 50.
Okay.
So let's say $800 in profit.
Yeah. So you're buying for a year's profit.
So in 10 months, it's like I've made my money back.
Yeah.
He should have charged $24,000 according to Joe Spizer's like SaaS valuation. And yeah, basically I bought it. I want to like reskin it, put like the Stripe type of UI on it and like re-release it and get people to install it. But here's what I thought was awesome. The guy that made it sits in Pakistan. Like his bedroom did not look like he was living like a king, but I'm sure $8,000 of US dollars goes a nice long way. It took him a month to build this app, and he flipped it on microacquire, and he sends me messages like probably every other week of like some new app that he's already built. And he's like, I got this one, half price for you. Do you want this one first? And I just thought like, this kid is a hustler.
That's awesome.
This kid is probably living like royalty in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And he's flipping apps, and he probably learned how to code himself, and he's flipping apps on microacquire. And
that's really
I just thought it was amazing.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I mean, there's so many great hustle stories.
Yeah.
That's a spectacular one.
Yeah.
And like, $8,000 doesn't sound like a ton of money, but living in Pakistan, $1 is worth 250 rupees right now.
Yeah.
US dollars are worth a lot more than rupees because there's terrible inflation there. So that's pretty special. Good for him. That's awesome.
If you were to build a SaaS company today, like a Shopify app, what would it be?
Great question. I'm not sure.
I think I would build one of our clients sent us a customer list on Slack. And I just thought that has got to be the stupidest thing ever, because there's no logs in Slack of first of all, a customer list is like, I don't even know how to equate it to like people not in e-commerce, but it is like, it's like your baby.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like your social security card number.
It's your social security card number. And it is probably the single most valuable asset in any transaction, M&A or whatever, right? It's like the customer list. Somebody sent it in Slack, and I was like, this should be illegal. Like, this should not be possible.
Yeah.
This should almost be something that like you get written up for.
Yeah.
Is dropping a customer list of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers in Slack. And so it got me thinking, like, why is there not a simple Shopify app where you don't export the customer list, but it's like a separate app. It requires 2-factor authentication to get in. So you have to validate like the person who's opening it, whether to look for, segmentation in Klaviyo, whatever it is, uploading to Facebook. There's proper logs. There's like a proper login, and there's integrations where it's like one click send to Facebook, or like you can edit it. You can edit the list in a web browser and then send it to Klaviyo or Facebook or Snapchat, wherever.
Yeah.
But you never have to download the file, and it never lives physically outside of Shopify.
I think you can download it on Klaviyo, but also like, the hard part is let's say you want to upload it to, let's say you want to do some analytics based on segmentation of like, what's our returning customer rate?
Yeah.
Or like what scent of native deodorant are you most likely to buy again based on your first purchase?
Yeah.
You need that in Excel format. So I think it's got to live in Excel format, but I think it should be harder to get in Excel format.
Yeah.
And certainly
it's like, for like us as like an advertising partner, we should never get access to that.
Yeah, that's right.
It should just be like, if I was working at a brand, I would never give an agency the customer list.
I think the hard part is like, let's say you want to run Pinterest ads. Klaviyo doesn't integrate with Pinterest. And
but
let's
this
say you have
app
an agency. Yeah. I guess, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
That would definitely be helpful.
That could be an easy, like, how much would you pay for that a month? $20?
Yeah.
And everybody would install it because it's privacy.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big one.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. People downloading your customer list is it's huge. It's very, very scary.
Yeah.
And on Klaviyo, I think for when in 2018, they didn't have users. Like they didn't have like a status, like everyone could download it,
right?
Who was using it. Then they finally said, okay, let's have different levels of users. Like, you have an e-commerce store owner,
right?
And you have a person who's just doing segmentation, and maybe only the owner should be able to download the most, one of the most important parts of the business.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all we got time for today.
Cool.
Let's chat. We're recording another episode soon. I really want to chat about SaaS pricing, especially because Klaviyo's prices are going up. I want to talk about this Twitter thread that Andrew Udorian wrote.
Yeah.
And where he talks about what he sees as the best businesses. He saw some businesses, he saw a lot more businesses get off of Amazon, or at least some businesses get off of Amazon more than are selling on Amazon than in the past. And he's looking at like 600 total. He talked about lean teams. And he said, and this blew my mind, and it was the top of the tweet thread, he's like, ROAS is not a good indicator of profitability for brands. And I was like, I wonder if there's like a selection bias in the end that he has of the 600 brands, and whether those brands are just unique as compared to everyone else who's sort of VC funded or growing or something to that effect. But looking forward to chatting about that.
I also want to talk about I don't know if you saw, YouTube launched a really cool integration with Shopify.
No,
and I'll reveal some revenues of some large YouTubers. And then I also want to talk about Daily Harvest, which I don't think we touched on yet.
Yeah.
And also all these D2C credit cards that are popping up.
Yeah. What D2C credit card is the best? Tell me right now. Which one would you use?
The one that I would go to right now is Parker.
Okay.
And it's basically like 60 days, no fee.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Really, I think this is great. I'm excited that we're doing it where it's just the two of us and no guests.
Agreed.
And so we're going to record another one coming up. So thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise in CPG, retail, and e-commerce.
And if you enjoyed this episode, then why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on.